Downstairs, I'm going to read from the book that came out of that exhibit. And the exhibit came out of drawing in the courtroom during the Reena Virk trials. I was there every day, and I drew about 500 drawings. And I was selling them to the newspapers and the TV, of course, but not that many. But when I do something, I like to really pay attention to it and do it properly, so I attended them all. And the idea with my publishers was to write some poetry after I was finished. But the trials went on, and they had a deadline. So actually, this is the one book that I have written consecutively with doing the drawings. So it was quite different for me to do that. Usually I do the drawings, and then maybe I feel like writing about it. So I had to kind of make myself write these poems. And I wanted to just be a witness, and I didn't know what was going on, really. I was just as floored as everybody else by this. And so the poems kind of reflect that. I think I didn't want to make judgments or anything, but just record the way I was with my drawings. And I don't know if you've seen the show downstairs, but there's a lot of writing on the drawings, because as they were speaking, I was writing away as well as drawing, and the texts are under the drawings too, and some of that gets into the poetry too. And sometimes I was sitting with the press, and if they didn't catch something, they would see what I'd written on my drawings, so sometimes they would use that. And that was quite interesting to me. But I had to work as a journalist. I had to be finished and down to the Vancouver Sun, where they fax these things out and scan them and things, on my bicycle, or down to, when I was in Victoria, down to the TV station there. And it's very difficult working as a journalist like that. And I found writing the poems difficult too, because I was sort of in the middle of it as I was doing it. But I don't draw many trials. In Denmark, I can't draw trials because they're a very closed system, and where I live, and they don't let people in. They aren't even allowed to report the name of the accused or anything until, you know, they're very closed. They have isolation and things that aren't so good, but they don't want the accused person to be influenced in any way by the public, so they have closed trials. So if I want to draw at a trial, I have to be in Canada. So this just happened to be when I could do it. And what I say here is that it's not a complete record, and I've tried to make it as impersonal as I could, but of course it's personal too. And this book is, if you haven't seen it yet, it is a book with a lot of the courtroom drawings in it, with the poems. The title is Required Reading, and the first poem I'm going to read is called Required Reading. And what it means is the pathologist was reading from her report of Reena Virk's body, and this was required. So in that sense, it was required reading. Yeah. So there's some drawings of the pathologist standing there as a woman in a yellow shirt. She's standing there describing. This is required reading. The slab, the sluiced floor. No one hasn't been there. Every murder film or story gives you the cool pathologist, funny or otherwise, sawing, sorting, picking through. It's part of the plot, expected, necessary. It's not the drama proper. It's not action. It's aftermath. It's the detachment that hooks you. She pulls on gloves. Her hands move in, but as if they were attached to her like tools, metal or silicone, at a distance and without involvement, if ever so careful, ever so sure. I know this act, this silence. I have also done this kind of thing. So I'm sort of referring to how I have to be when I'm drawing. Yeah. Not violence, but the remains of violence. The remains of what was before violence, which means a healthy, living child, intact tissues, a steady, pounding heart. Details, like the black hair on her lower back, formed in a crown, as if repeatedly combed. The vulnerable, perfect corner of her lips, or the prophetic color of her lips, a dashed vermilion, now swollen, spread, and every bruise meticulously witnessed and written down under the pitiless light. You said it, pitiless it has to be in order to see it. These hands made light of these terrible things because they had to. Someone did because it was required, the enumeration of the wounds, a kind of secular stations of the cross. She got up, she fell, here. She was struck, here. She clung to a railing, here. She covered her head, or tried to. Here she crawled such and such a distance. Here they returned. Here were delivered so many kicks, or about so many. And here she did not move, but was moved down a slope of grass described as slippery. While the judge remarked, "We do not need an expert witness to tell us grass is slippery after rain." You go through it, knowing how it's going to end, as if you were in a church. But your beads are words, and each word passes between your fingers, and there's nothing you did not expect to hear. You have to get through it, and you know it happened. And even this close, it's turning into a story. And this is one because the Virk family was in the court, and the grandmother was sitting there, and I drew her. And she had her bare feet on her footstool. So it's called the Footstool. Reena's grandmother has a small embroidered stool, carved all about, which every day she carries into court, on which she places her feet. It came from the old country. It is innocent, though it has been here and there in the quietness of living rooms. In all the celebrations, each grandchild handed over it and held. It has been at gatherings after funerals, where she would sit down on her best chair, arrange her white sari, surreptitiously remove her shoes, and place her bare feet and look about her unhurried, benevolent, in the bosom of her family. This is getting maudlin. No one expected it or her bare feet or her look to end up here. And this one's called Court Followers because there were some women that kind of followed the Virk family and were at all the trials. And here's a picture of one of them leaning over the family. Court Followers. Familiar now among the crowd, outside the courtroom, closing in on Reena's family. Grabbing a bench behind them when we get in. A woman with a wild look and faded hair, and a sheaf of notes, writing with all her might. She's under directives. Voices she alone can hear. She knows the trial depends on her, its imperious outcome. She leans, she inserts herself. The family endure her as they endure the rest. She can do them no further harm. I think if I spoke to her once, I would become her. It's that close. So I keep my distance. I have a feeling there's no difference between us. None. What am I doing here? This is a description of Warren in the dock when he came in. He hid down in the dock. He was a little boy. In the dock, the sheriff with the cropped hair is in place at the gate into the dock. She's gammon, her perked hip drips with the approved junk, holster, phone, slung keys, her tough look, exaggerated as in a farce, pleased to be playing herself. And now they bring him in. He is the shorter. At her side seems almost more the girl, but it's a close thing. Behind his back, she unlocks his handcuffs, and without thinking, he bends head and shoulders forward to give her space. Two kids in a game. This can't be serious. And this describes one of the witnesses. The witnesses and the other girls on trial, they were tried as, the witnesses were treated as juveniles, and the other girls that beat Reena up, they were tried as juveniles, so I wasn't allowed to publish their faces. I drew them. I was allowed to draw them, but I wasn't allowed to publish them. So in the drawings downstairs, you'll see the faces are covered, but they're in there in the drawings. Yeah. So I had to do it by the sort of body movements and to express how they were without using their faces. So this is one of the witnesses speaking, a friend of Warren. Tall, plausible, the one who did not implicate himself, who only intervened once to pull Warren away. "Cool it, it's not your fight," he said, and only circumstance prevented a second stepping in when his girlfriend, who said, "I don't like fights," felt sick. Later, a witness, she threw up in the hall and giggled on the stand. So he'd left with her to take her home, which may or may not be true. Freely, he lied for Warren, without stint, without shame. At the station, at the arraignment, you lied to protect your friend. Yeah. Now, with the pointer, he traces the bridge and the infamous innocent stairs where Reena slumped at the rail, where her head jolted with each kick. Even now, he's told, you're finding it hard to sell your buddy down the river. He says his present statements are consistent. He has short hair. Across that distance, he explains as to a foreigner. You don't rat out on a friend. Then, like an afterthought, if you do, you have to watch your back. This one's called the soft room, and it's a description of the room that was in the video that they had to watch. The soft room. Just see if there's anything else I put in. Well, here's Kelly watching the video. She had to watch it, but it was actually videoed when she was much younger, just after it had happened. At Saanich Police Station, they've set aside a room. Normally, the sergeant says, there's stuffed animals. There's a love seat. It's used to interview children in cases of child abuse. It's known as the soft room. A love seat. Normally. The video is bad. The black machine swiveled at the judge, so the tiny heads of mother and girl elongate, dull curtains, a lot of static and flack. And now the prosecutor lifts her arm, aims the remote fast forward, while the sleeve of her gown widens, and after a silence the inanimate voices resume. One childish, one a man's. Hours of it. You are being charged with murder. Do you understand? This is the soft room. I didn't do anything. I want to go home. This is normally. It's another poem about the pathologist. The pathologist, too, cannot but speak in pictures. It is her method, to be plain. The skull was very soft and boggy. The tissues were sheared. Between sessions, she stands outside the glass doors in the rain for a smoke. Her hands are beautiful. Remember in the court, her palm to demonstrate placed against her close-cropped head? And how she touched her throat. The thorax was crushed against the spine. She is asked what stomping means, and she says, a blow with the sole of a piece of footwear. She is not theatrical. The quiet gesture of the wrist, the unalterable word, remote, as if she were still on the far side of glass. Reena was alive when she went into the water. Question, and what if she had not been drowned? Answer, I believe she would have died. Just going to find one more in here that I missed. It's a picture of the man that was doing the line search, the diver. He's describing how they found her body. He's got a map, and there he is. The tide was in flood, flowing up the gorge waterway, visible at most 3 feet. You go along 4 inches at a time, using your hands and your eyes. The usual trash, bottles and shells in the eelgrass below. You could see the band of a pair of underwear. Then her jeans. They were fastened. The button was done up. The police diver, solid and erect, his hands clasped over his paunch. I prefer to stand. Speaks straightforwardly, being used to this, but even so his words become a kind of poem. There was a thin layer of silt on the ocean floor. Light through water diffuses. The cloth was a light grayish green. Then we observed the body in the water, face down, head down. Round shoulders, arms straight down, legs hanging, what we referred to as a child as the jellyfish float. She was very hard to touch, no elasticity. The term we use is saponification, a process the body goes through. The skin solidifies, the fat, I would say. The courtroom returns with the funny word. The press are all trying to hear, trying to spell, glancing aside into each other's papers. Here is no poem after all. He is handed jeans in a plastic bag to identify. That is correct. He turns and holds out one silty cuff. There's still some eelgrass on it. See, eelgrass. Oh, we're doing fine. I'm going to read. Are you all right with me reading more? Yeah? Because I thought I didn't have time. I have time for a few more. These are more about Warren in the dock. Remember the last poem ended, "This can't be serious." Here he is with his head down. Yeah. It is, if it's serious, why is he hiding? Through the whole arraignment, he's crouched down in the box, and only his light hair shows, his narrow T-shirt shoulders, while the voices drone on, and the dossiers are paged and turned and filed, and nobody cracks a smile, bobbing for the judge, my respectful submission, my learned friend, and if it please, and your honor must disabuse his mind. Tiered windowless, the room preserves its hierarchies, invites the eye upward to the judge's seat, the high-backed chair, and over him on the wall, Dieu est mon droit, the lion, rampant, etc. It's also formal, except for the child whose posture they're somehow managing to ignore. No one, I'm fairly sure, ever did this before. Was he then afraid of our looks, of every eye fastened on him, the fascination, the harm in it? Enough to hide inside the panels that support the glass? The way at a Victorian trial the accused beautiful woman was allowed to faint away. Does he think this has to be okay? The sheriff stands there so alert, ready to grab him should he really fall. Her lips part on her hard little face. Her look has softened almost to pity. When he came in, I know he saw what I was up to. But what difference can it make, this invasion, whether he's drawn or only seen? Everyone's stare must hurt him equally. It can't be me, I'm almost sure. This is about Kelly at the arraignment. She was a very little girl when I first drew her. She just turned 15 and she had a little ponytail. She changed a lot during the years that the trials went on. Kelly then. What was I at nearly 15? Can I even remember the stance and simmering, The way at that age I walked, ran, lay down every night, my bare feet pressed into the cold of the sheets, healthy sleep, and my eyes opening into the next day, with or without residual fear. For her, it's already nearly 3 years ago. Can she remember? I saw her then at the arraignment, in profile, a kid in a ponytail, lower lip stubborn and downcast eyes. Anger or heedlessness? She was not casual like the others, the ones who'd swarmed and punched and left it at that. She went back. Of course, in the court, the others had each other, were brought in twos and threes. The defense spoke to them like pals, hands in his pockets, rocking on his heels, used to what he took for teenage slang, you guys, hanging out, etc., and gave them to understand, as he must, in giving the judge to understand, that what they did was no big deal, dangerous. And they crossed their legs, examined their nails, loosened their long hair from their collars in gestures that appeared bored and disdainful, were given yellow foolscap and pens, and expected to write, to appear attentive at least, as if they were in school. But they didn't know how to write, and they were not asked to speak, and were charged. Their friends in baseball caps came in to see. No one expressed very much, a few tears at the end for the sentencing, I think, not for Reena. I think this is true, though I have no way to know what is true, except my eyes, my attention. Beyond that, I can't be sure. This is the last poem that I wrote. It's called The Color of Right. That's when the judge was summing up, he used that phrase. This girl had what adults call the color of right, a belief that Reena had something in her bag. The judge is summing up her pathetic bag with the lipstick, the perfume, the pajamas for the visit home, the cigarettes everyone shared before they tossed it empty over the bridge. The color of right is new to me. Maybe I misheard. Reena, who wanted with all her might to belong, to be as she believed them, light-hearted, contemptuous, sarcastic, strong. What she might have done, phoning around, pretending to be important, was foolish, maybe, mildly wrong, but what happened was unfathomable. Edgeless, the wet slope, the underside of a bridge, mud and darkness, no safe hold. Once opened, it fell forever. No more color then. So it's kind of an open-ended book, but I asked my niece to write a kind of epilogue to it. And I'm just going to read some of that, because she came in as a young girl, older than these girls, but still more able to empathize or to understand them than I could. I chose a seat in the third row. I could see the witness stand and the defense attorney. I sat in the same row as Reena's grandparents. I recognized them from the nightly news. They were there for Reena to see that her life was vindicated, to imagine what they felt. And what they saw as they scanned the room was unbearable. Several teenage girls filled the seats behind me. They had glossy lips and braces on their teeth. Were they there to support the defendant? If so, how did they wrap their young minds around this course of events? Had they all been there the night Reena had died? Had they seen her blood or heard her tears? Could they not have smelled her fear? I shift in my seat, nervous about who may sit beside me, whose arm might brush up against mine accidentally. The two old women sit in the front row center. They have foreign accents, German maybe. They are not associated with the defendant, the counsel or the victim. Why are they here? Entertainment, boredom, or morbid fascination? Why am I here? The witness has a long criminal record that is relayed to the jury, establishing her as a teen prone to lying and violence. She admits to beating Reena, throwing punches during an unprovoked attack. Her answer to the question why is, I don't know. The image in my brain of the vicious attack makes me squirm in my seat. I do not look down a row at Reena's grandparents. I only imagine the pain and rage they must feel. I examine the witness for signs of remorse or fear or horror at what she did and what she saw. There's nothing to see in her face or her eyes. I realize that the only presence I can understand in the courtroom is my own. I try to focus on my body, but I only become aware of how painfully I need to use the washroom. My mind cannot absorb what it's hearing. This is reality and not a TV screen. A very small part of me is actually present. Mostly I'm lost in a wave of youthful memories and teenage pains that cannot even be measured against the reality in this room. The first break in the morning is a relief. I realize how tense my shoulders are, how hard my head is throbbing. As we walk away from the courtroom, I take one glance back at Reena's grandparents, but there are no words that can express what I feel for them. There are no words to express how I feel about myself or even my world. Everything has shifted and turned upside down in the last 3 hours. All that are left are questions with no answers. At home, I imagine Reena's body lying at the bottom of the gorge. All the blood has washed away, and her bones are delicately fused back together. She is perfect. Youthful wings stretch and envelop her. She is carried out to the sea, flying freely. So that's some of the poems in the book. And if there's anything you'd like to ask me about how I work or yeah?
I'd just like to thank you for that wonderful reading and for the terrific work that you've done as a witness throughout your career. I have a question about how you synthesize the moment. That so many of these works are about very particular significant moments, and you are working quickly, sometimes I would assume then in your mind, trying to seize upon a particular moment while other moments are unfolding around it. Mm-hmm. So I'm wondering about the kinds of choices that you're making in those moments to then synthesize, how that crystallization comes about.
Oh, I wouldn't know, but I know I have to work very, very fast, and I love drawing fast. I love figures that are moving. If somebody's sitting for a portrait, it's really boring. But when people are moving and they're showing what they're like through their bodies and their faces and their expressions, that's what I love to try to catch. So I have to be very, very fast. And the more emotion that they're feeling, the more they're showing, the more interesting it becomes to me. And it just means paying extreme attention to it. And it is a kind of curiosity about what's going on here and fastening on something or other, I suppose. But I like to draw so fast that I don't really have time to judge it. I'm just doing it. And I draw childbirth too, and that's another wonderful subject for drawing very fast drawings and a kind of progression of drawings. So these drawings become almost like film, and just the use of very fast line to express things. And usually, as I said, I don't think in words until a lot later than I've done the drawings, so this is quite new to me to have to move from one to the other like that. And I think in any kind of writing that I do use the drawings. I use the powers of observation that I get from drawing very attentively. I use in the poems. So I want the poems to be really visual too, really, so that you can see where it is, what's happening, the colors, the expressions and things through the words. So it's another kind of another way of making pictures. I don't like abstract poetry, but I haven't read this book for a while, and I realize that quite often I refer back to myself and the act of drawing, and how being a witness you have to kind of stand back and how invasive you are. You know, I had this sense that I was very invasive, just like the court followers. And what was I doing there? What was I doing, making more pain for Warren in the dock? And did I have a right to do this? And that I felt that all the way through. And that sometimes happens in the hospitals too when I'm drawing. And I think the only explanation I can give is if I do it well enough. If I get out of the way and do it well enough, then that's okay. So, yeah.
Thank you.
I just wanted to speak about the very recent media that just happens to be in the newspaper today. and just to also honor your compassion around this delicate subject. For those of us that were here during the media and now it coming up again, I'm just curious about how when you were interacting with family members over such a long period of time, and you mention that in your poem about the woman that you drew that was following the family and quite intrusive.
Yeah.
How did you navigate that delicate balance of not, of respecting the family members in
I
such
don't know. I drew them, and they saw the drawings, but I didn't speak with them. I spoke with the grandmother and grandfather. And this drawing on the front is a drawing that I made from a photo that she had of Reena. Because the photo that the newspapers use is a very poor school photo. But she had this nice photo, and she wanted me to put this curl, because she said Reena always had a curl of hair. And I gave her that drawing. So I visited her, and I had a nice relationship with her, but I was very shy, because the rest of the family were getting so much attention already. And I was very shy to talk to them directly. Yeah. So the court followers kind of gave me the creeps, but also I thought, gosh, I'm like that too, you know. I'm just about like that, yeah. So it's very, very, being a journalist, it is a bit like that, yeah. So, but I like to draw private things. I like to, like childbirth and things around tiny babies. I like to draw that too.
Heather, you mentioned that as you were drawing, these were sort of like, the images were like a movie. They were flashing before you. There are probably a lot of stories and sub-stories happening throughout the whole trial. You were there. Can you recall, and can you tell us any stories that you were involved in at that time that you can recall during this particular trial?
Not really, except the ones that I recorded in the poems. Following Kelly was very interesting because of the great change from a little girl to a teenager, and trying to get a handle on her was always very interesting, and her reaction when she was convicted and all that kind of thing, and just not wanting to judge, trying not to judge, and it's obvious I had a lot more sympathy for Warren than I had for her. But trying not to allow that to surface. Yeah. But I don't think there's other stories except what I put into the poetry. Yeah. So I try to finish a job that I do, you know. And I think it was Rilke that said you should make the act of creativity so complete that there's no residue. It's a wonderful phrase. There shouldn't be any emotional residue when you're finished with it. You should be finished with it. And I'm so lucky because sometimes I'm not allowed to draw what I want to draw, and I get this ache, and then I can write. So I'm really lucky to have two strings to my bow because I can always find my way through, usually later by writing, but sometimes at the same time. Yeah. That often happens in the hospital because I'm drawing a baby and the baby dies, or I'm not allowed to draw this particular baby I want to draw, and then I can write about it. So that's a way of clearing that up. Yeah?
Now, the text that was inscribed on the drawings, was the text inscribed towards the end of the sketch, or was the text inscribed while you were drawing?
While I was drawing, anytime anything interesting came down, I started to write. So a lot of writing on them. It's a bit like, well, it's not quite the same, but when I was in Palestine, I drew the children that were injured, and I asked them to write on the drawings. So they were the ones that wrote on the drawings, or their parents. So I got all this Arabic on. But the idea of writing on drawings is delightful. It's a beautiful compliment to the drawings. Yeah. So, but it's usually something somebody said, and I had to get it down. So I'd stop drawing and write it down before I forgot it. Yeah. So, but I hope you'll have a look at the book, and it costs $22. I'm carrying a lot of them, so I'd love to leave some behind me. Yeah. And I hope you'll see the pictures if you haven't seen them yet. From here, they're down? Down. Oh, okay, okay. Thank you. Okay, thank you. Thank you.